Good morning. Welcome to the live streaming worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. I'm Adam Wedeking, a member of the worship committee, and I'll be your worship associate today. We invite you to worship with us with an open mind and an open heart. Friday was Transgender Day of Remembrance, a day to remember those who have been killed by transphobic violence. Since last year's TDOR, we have lost 40 trans folks in this country from violence caused by no other reason than the fact that they were trans. Of those 40, 21 were Black trans women. As UUs, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people. So one death is too many. We pray for an end to transphobic violence. As we enter into this sacred time created by our presence and shared intent, I invite you to get comfortable. Turn down your phones or other distracting devices. Make a conscious decision to set aside for this 1 hour the self-protective walls we all keep around our heart and our thoughts. Let us remember and explore together what has drawn us to this faith, or learn what this faith is about, and relax. Let the stresses of the outside world slip away as together we focus on this time together. And together we breathe. Although we are now a community connected largely by electronic means, one day we will be together again. Yet even now, we are those seekers with the yearnings to learn, to understand, to make the world a better place, and with the same desire for fellowship. And so we are here, seeking that living, interconnected web of which we are all a part, letting go of the anxiety, the fears, the expectations of your own or others' making, and join us in this hour of beloved community. And so together we breathe. Our opening hymn this morning is "What Wondrous Love." Please rise in spirit and join us. And because we are Zooming this, nobody will know if you sing off key.
What wondrous love is this?
For our call to worship, I invite you to read with me this Unitarian Universalist affirmation of hope by Loretta Williams. We bearers of the dream affirm that a new vision of hope is emerging. We pledge to work for that community in which justice will be actively present. We affirm that there is struggle yet ahead, yet we know that in the struggle, there is hope for the future. We affirm that we are co-creators of the future, not passive pawns. We stand united in affirmation of our hope and vision of a just and inclusive society. We affirm the unity of all persons. We affirm brotherhood and sisterhood that allows us to touch upon each other's humanity. We affirm a unity that opens our eyes, ears, and hearts to see the different but common forms of oppression, suffering, and pain. Yet we are one in the image of God, and we celebrate our hopes for human unity. Within ourselves and within the gathered community, we will discover the strength not to hide in indifference. Affirming that hope, publicly expressed, energizes and enables us to move forward. Together, we pledge action to transcend barriers, be they racial, political, economic, social, or religious. We pledge to make our tomorrows become our todays. This morning, I am excited to introduce you to my friend and coworker, Erica Ruiz, who will be presenting the sermon this morning, Confronting Cisheteropatriarchy, Reclaiming the Self. As a way to honor Trans Day of Remembrance, this sermon is about the visceral experience of existing outside the contingencies of predetermined gender roles. To be trans is to have an awareness of the self that is rooted in personal truth. Trans people, especially trans women of color, have always been at the forefront of LGBTQ rights movement and have paved the way for the gender non-conforming community to exist within the freedoms we are granted in the present age. As a community that has survived so much oppression within our society, the resilience of the trans experience is one of breaking free from generational trauma and coming into full personal authenticity in a way that reclaims queerness as an act of holiness. Erica is an agender Latinx femme from San Bernardino. Currently, Erica works as the LGBTQ youth organizer with Inland Congregations United for Change, ICUC, and Inland Empire Prison Collective, IEPC. In this role, they guide QTPOC youth through leadership development and self-advocacy. They also received their BA in creative writing from the University of Redlands. Their work has been published in Shuff Poetry, the Redlands Review, The Body is Not an Apology, and the Chronicles of a Mixed Fat Chick. Erica's overall life goal is to carve out spaces where marginalized people come into their own power and authenticity. In their free time, Erica reads tarot cards, religiously uses the internet, and cuddles their cats. You can find them on Instagram at their handle there, Erimacat. And yeah, all right. There are a few announcements we would like to share. During the service, we will mention several websites and email addresses and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all this information, so you don't need to copy things down right now. However, for those needing the information by auditory means, they will be announced verbally during the service. Chat time provides an opportunity to spend an hour talking amongst ourselves, usually beginning with the service, then wandering on to other topics. It's held on Zoom at 11:30, but to participate, you need a separate Zoom invitation. So please go to our website at uuchurchatriverside.org for the Zoom chat time registration. Camp de Benito Pines is a wonderful place for camping, events, and retreats owned by the congregations and fellowships of the Pacific Southwest District of the Unitarian Universalist Association. It is at an elevation of 6,800 feet, just off Highway 38, up on the way up to Big Bear. Like the rest of the world, the year 2020 has been very difficult for those up on the mountain. They have been affected by both the COVID-19 pandemic and the weather events. All on-site events were canceled through March 31st, 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The aftermath of the El Dorado fire damage and the seriousness of the pandemic could well require further delays to reopening. They are now working to protect the camp from the fire after effects and subsequent damage from rain and flooding. Periodically, they look for volunteers to help with various tasks, and they can always use financial donations. This is posted on their website. We must now address our newest threat to the camp's existence, flooding into camp buildings and roads. It is a big task, and preparing for the worst case of ash and mud flow into the camp will be costly. Initial estimates are around $250,000. Our wellhead can potentially get buried under mud flow, and without the forest duff and vegetation behind our camp, the cabins are at risk of being flooded. This puts the existence of your sacred space in the mountains in jeopardy once again. To this end, the COVID-19 Emergency Fund Drive shifts now to double duty and has been renamed Camp's 2021 Emergency Fund Drive. The fund drive will continue to seek donations to cover the operational expenses and will now also need to raise money to help pay for fire and water flow mitigation. Additionally, we shall apply for grant funds to help offset the cost of erosion and flooding mitigation. To learn more, you can go to uucamp.org. On the first Sunday of each month, we share with you the joys and concerns that we have received throughout the month. The next one is Sunday, December 1st. Be sure to email or text your joys and concerns throughout the month to our Caring Network Coordinator, Dinah Rowe. Her email is ramblinrose22@yahoo.com, or you can call or text her at 909-645-2885. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris have been declared the winners of the hard-fought 2020 presidential election. But there's nothing about this election season that is normal, and the fight to follow the laws and norms of our country, perhaps through Inauguration Day and beyond, will have the effect of continuing to pull us into opposing increasingly entrenched camps. It's easy for some of us to pull into one camp, feeling secure and ignoring the long-term destruction this division in our country creates. Being angry, resentful, full of "I told you so's" isn't helpful. A search on the internet for what UUs are doing now that the elections are legally over reveals some interesting sites. Lots of UUs are determined not to be lulled back into a stupor for 4 years, especially now. UU The Vote, which has been mentioned before, is part of the UU Justice Ministry of California. So you can go to uujmca.org, that's UU Justice Ministry of California. They have many different programs, actions, and trainings going on all year. UUJMCA is also part of CUUSAN, which you see on the screen right now. That stands for the Coalition of UU State Action Networks. Worried about the pandemic, environment, social justice issues, think our future is worth it? It's up to each and every one of us. Here locally, our Social and Environmental Justice Committee will now be meeting on the first and third Sundays of the month because there is a lot going on with the food pantry starting and everything else we're trying to do. So go ahead and check out the Social and Environmental Justice Committee's website for the Zoom link. You can go to uuchurchriverside.org, click Justice, and then click Social and Environmental Justice, or you can go to the website that's there on the screen. I'd also like to announce this. I'm working with a coalition of folks that are trying to reach out to street vendors in Riverside to inform them of some new policy changes that the city is trying to make. We want to meet with them, maybe get them to talk at city council meeting about what their views are on these policy changes. In order to do that, we need to find the street vendors. And so one of the organizations I work with is Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice, ICIJ, and they have put together this form. You can go to bit.ly/rivvendors if you see any street vendors within the city of Riverside, and let us know where they are so that we can come out and talk to them and let them know what's going on and get them involved. On October 20th, Riverside County moved back into the more restrictive Tier 1 or purple tier of the governor's 4-tier plan towards reopening. That means churches, along with many other businesses and organizations, must shut down indoor operations. We will continue to keep you updated on Sunday mornings and on the website. Riverside County has long been second in the number of cases in the state, and we are frequently second to Los Angeles in the number of deaths. The county is asking everyone to please get tested. There's no charge and no limit on how many times you can be tested. For information, go to rivcoph.org/coronavirus or go to our website. Riverside and San Bernardino counties are among the 41 counties included in the limited curfew announced by the governor effective November 21st. It'll be in effect from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. starting Saturday, which was last night. Restrictions between those hours will be similar to the stay-at-home order that was in effect in March. That means all non-essential work, movement, and gatherings will have to stop in all purple tier counties. This curfew is set to remain in effect until December 21st at 5 a.m. For the most current and reliable information on the COVID-19 virus in your area, go to the website for your county public health department or the state of California. You can also find information and links on our church website. A bunch of links are there on the screen now. The monthly UUCR newsletter comes out the first of every month by email and per request by postal mail. If you have something you would like covered or that you want to write, let Dinah know at ramblinrose22@yahoo.com or call or text her at 909-645-2885. We have 2 lightings of sacred flames. The first is the Occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle, and the second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. Let us acknowledge that we walk upon the traditional territories of the Maranga, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. In honor of the Maranga people, we, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Our chalice lighting this morning is Blessed Are the Queer by H.P. Rivers. Blessed are the wanderers seeking affirmation. Blessed are the worshipers praying from closets, pulpits, pews, and hardship. Blessed are the lovers of leaving family and familiarity, leaving tables where love is not being served. Blessed are those who stay. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the queer, disciples of truth, living, breathing, sacred reflections of divine love. Our next hymn is Spirit of Life. Please rise in spirit and join us. This portion of our service is how we fund all that we do to care for our congregation and our beloved historic church. And to ensure that when we are able to safely reopen again, we will be here to welcome you all back. A reminder that even though the church is not allowed to reopen at this time, the church expenses continue. Just a few of the expenses which are ongoing are the utilities, insurance, and the security company. Our administrator, Robert, pays the bills and answers inquiries to the church, plus other administrative duties which come up on a daily basis. You can mail your pledge and donations to the church office. Please, no cash. Our church office address is shown here. It will be available again later in the program. We also have Stater Brother cards for your grocery shopping that also earns our church a percentage. Please contact Dinah or the church office to purchase Stater Brothers cards. You may also request Stater cards sent by mail. Once more, Dinah's email is ramblinrose22@yahoo.com, and the church office email is admin@uuchurchriverside.org. For those of you who have purchased Amazon gift cards, another way to help is when making purchase through Amazon, go to smile.amazon.com. Be sure you have the smile dot and choose Universalist Unitarian Church as your charity. We receive 0.5% of your qualifying purchases, and by using an Amazon script card, we receive a percentage from both. Dinah Rowe will be taking orders for script cards again as the holidays approach. Gift cards make good gifts to put in with your holiday cards. Please donate by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity, and for those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. Our next hymn is From You I Receive. Please rise again in spirit and join us.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive,
Today's meditation will be a reading of the names of the victims of transphobic violence from the last year, followed by a Transgender Day of Remembrance prayer by Reverend Sunshine J. Wolf. Unieski Carrie Herrera, 39. Angel Unique, 25. Sarah Blackwood. Brooklyn DeShuna, 20. Felicia Harris, 33. Michelle Michelin Ramos Vargas, in her mid-30s. Mia Green, 29. Orion Burnett. Key Sam. Leah Rayshawn Day, 28.
Aja Raquel Rocky, Roan Spears. Kaisha D. Hardy, 22. Dior H. Ova, Tiffany Harris. Marilyn Cazares. Summer Taylor. Bree Black, 27. Shaki Peters, 32. Mercy Mack, 22. Brayla Stone, 17. Brian Egypt Powers, 43.
Selena Reyes Hernandez, 37. Jane Thompson, 33. Rhea Milton, 25. Dominique Remy Fells. Tony McDade. Helly J. O'Regan, 20. Nina Pop. Penelope Diaz Ramirez. Leila Peleas Sanchez. Serena, 21. Serena Angelique Velasquez Ramos, 32.
Joanna Metzger. Lexi, 33. Monica Diamond, 34. Scotland DeVore, 51. Yampi Mendez Arocho, 19. Nulissa Luciano Ruiz. Dustin Parker, 25. Nikki Kuhnhausen, 17. Mia Perry. Yahira Nesby, 33.
On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we remember those who have been murdered for being who they are, those who face violence on a daily basis, those who have lost loved ones, and those who worry for loved ones. May we come to a time when we cease to shame children around gender roles and expression, where we allow for freedom and exploration of identity and expression, and to a world that operates from love, especially when things are difficult and confusing. May all of us who live with the threat of violence find support and strength, community, hope, and safety from violence. Amen, Ashe, Shalom, blessed be, and Satu. And now I'd like to welcome Erica Ruiz to share with us all. Erica.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm glad to be here with y'all. It'd be nice if we were in person, but sadly, we're in the middle of a pandemic. With that being said, I want to reintroduce myself a little bit. My name is Erica. Adam and I do work together. We're coworkers. So we both work for ICUC, Inland Congregations United for Change. I also work for Inland Empire Prism Collective, which is an up and coming org. And within my position, I'm the LGBTQ youth organizer, which means that throughout the region of the Inland Empire, but mostly based in San Bernardino, like I involve youth who are like at the front lines of shifting the local narrative of like just LGBTQ youth in general. And I do this by giving them the necessary tools to be their own advocates, so that they can change structural policy with their own power and experience. So I teach them youth organizing. And I'm qualified for this because I am a trans, non-binary human being. And so just want to reiterate that I'm grateful to be here. I have a really like deeply personal experience with gender, to the point where it's deeply embedded in my spiritual practice. Like feeling like coming to like an authentic gender identity has been a spiritual experience for me. And I feel like it's such a common narrative across like the trans community. And so I would like to start off today with a poem by Joshua Jennifer Espinosa. I think she's amazing. She's a trans woman who is a poet who actually lives in Riverside. She was raised in San Bernardino and like has stayed local to the area. I'm convinced that all her poems can be used as spells, but that's besides the point, you know. And so because the bravery and resilience of trans women is the reason that gender non-conforming people like myself can exist in our truth today, I wanted to center us on uplifting that narrative and the struggle that it comes with. So this poem that I have for you today is titled Death. Every poem I can't write about being a trans woman gathers around my body like fire in the night. The smell of forest, the scent of ritual, all this longing to hope for more, eulogized in the body of water, the body of so much water, lapping against the shore, where I wait for the world to stop taking us. So if we could just take a moment to like just really take that in. So again, that poem is titled Death. It's by Joshua Jennifer Espinosa. If you're interested in reading any of her other work, I think she's great. I highly suggest it to literally everybody I meet. And so through this very specific poem, Espinosa gives us an intimate look into the heaviness of knowing that to be a trans woman is to live a life that could potentially be ended early. That because of trans misogynistic violence, we lose so many lives. As we saw earlier, this year alone, the United States has witnessed the murders of approximately 40 trans or gender non-conforming people who were victims of homicide. The majority of these people were Black and Latinx transgender women. So no matter how institutionalized or politically correct we can be about the notion of gender nonconformity, the reality is that to exist outside the framework of the pre and post gender binary is to constantly be susceptible to danger. Our existence is a question, one that many people are afraid to ask themselves, one that many people react to with violence. The cisheteropatriarchy as it's defined, is a system of power based on the supremacy and dominance of cisgender heterosexual men through the exploitation and oppression of women and the LGBTQIA community. It's basically a food chain that's based on capitalism, right? It's one where men, especially white men, sit at the top as a dominant class, and the rest of us end up as an afterthought in the race towards the most money. It is this system that decided what our social norms should look like. Through centuries of social dominance, men have decided that gender nonconformity shouldn't exist. We witness this forced notion of false normacy throughout history in many ways, such as the colonization of indigenous people and their forced religious conversion, where many cultures lost the autonomy over their gender experience. We have also seen it play out through witch hunts during the transition from feudalism to capitalism, where people who fell outside the gender roles, especially those perceived as women, were demonized for their experiences. And we have seen this throughout the past few decades, from the police brutality that led to the Stonewall riots, to strangers having online arguments with each other about Target's gender-neutral toy section. Right, it's so normalized to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. And so the gender binary as the supposed human norm is a lie that we're fed because it benefits a certain kind of people. When we leave the confinements of Western imperialism, what we find are many cultures worldwide that actually have a complex understanding of gender that exists outside the binary. Indigenous people within America have the concept of two-spirit. In Mexico, Oaxacan communities have the mujes. In India, there's the hijras. In Jamaica, there's the guevedoses. And those are just the ones that I could think of from the top of my head. If we continue to dig, that history and like that culture gets so much deeper. Because all of these communities are normalized within their cultures, right? It's not that these societies have a different blueprint of what it means to be a person. It's that the social conditions on which they live don't necessarily rely on the erasure of gender nonconformity. The gender binary as a belief not only relies on the erasure of trans and gender nonconforming people, it also relies on the erasure of intersex people. In reality, approximately 10% of the population is intersex, which is equivalent of how many redheads exist. And we don't go around pretending that redheads don't exist. Like, it's not like suddenly, well, we can't see them, you know? And so why do we do this with intersex people? Like, why do we go through the lengths of making sure they have surgery done on them, like right after birth? What are we trying to hide? If sex itself isn't a binary, then how can gender be a binary? And so when we start to dig deeper and get beyond the propaganda, what we find is that the human experience is actually a lot more complex than we give ourselves credit for. We exist in the gray areas of life a lot more frequently than we do in the stark contrast of Black and white. So this same concept applies to gender. The same way that there is no correct way to be a cisgender man or woman, there is also no singular correct way to be transgender. The prefix trans simply means to get across, to get from one to the other. The use of this exists in words such as transportation, transaction, transmit. And nobody winces when we say any of these, even though we're using the language in the same way. So to be transgender is simply to move from one gender to another. This means that transness encompasses a large variation of genders and gender expressions. As a non-binary person who aligns myself with femmehood, reclaiming trans has almost felt taboo. This isn't because I felt rejected by transness or like the trans community. It's because I felt rejected by the idea of what cisgender people had conditioned me to believe trans was. When it comes to my personal journey, I see the concept of gender. I fully understand why it exists, how it is used as another personal identifier to distinguish our individuality from the next person. I see how it is often liberating, and how gender, when allowed freedom, can be the truest form of who we are as a person. I see it, and I've decided to reject it. What a lot of people don't understand is that this too is a part of the trans experience. Every single trans person I know has had to fight to reclaim our true identity, to be seen as our full selves. For me, it has presented itself as a freedom to remove myself from a social construct that has only caused me harm. Throughout my life, aligning myself with gender has been presented as a dangerous experience, one where I never quite fit into a box, one where strangers nitpick at me as if I don't hold the truth of my own experience. When people ask me about my gender or lack thereof, they always want to know about a first moment, as if people want something tangible that validates this in a way that they can wrap their heads around. And while I offer the explanation as a way of bridging understanding to people who may not otherwise get it, I want to preface this by saying that the trans people never owe an explanation of our experiences. That to expect that from us is an act of violence in itself, because it questions the validity of who we are as people and who we know ourselves to be. It is a question that asks for proof of something that few people have proof of. How do you know you're a man? How do you know you're a woman? It's like asking, how do you know you exist? How do you know that your experience is yours and that every feeling that beats inside of you is a truth? Frankly, the short answer is that it's complicated. So first of all, I'm agender, which means that I experience an absence of gender in general. I want to go a little bit deeper into my personal experience because I think it's important to outline how trans people come in so many different forms. And today we have so much language to describe this, the most commonly used term being non-binary, which simply means to be outside of the gender binary. Right, and so there's a lot of fight within different communities about this. People think that there's too many gender identities. Like people are like, well, why do we need so many? And the reality is that all of this is just a construct. It's just something we use to be able to understand ourselves better as people. And so it's not necessarily that people are coming up with new genders. It's that people are simply giving a language to the experiences that already exist. Right? Language, like gender, is also a social construct. And so why are we not combining them more often? Like, why are we so scared of allowing people the ability to pinpoint what they're feeling? And so for myself, the first time that I really felt disconnected from gender was around the time that I was like 8 years old. I didn't have the language for this. I just like, I knew I felt a sense of dissociation, but I just assumed everybody felt that. Right? Like, I just assumed that everybody, like there was like this general consensus that we were all just performing for each other. And that we were all cool with pretending. And right, it's because the cisheteropatriarchy makes us believe that like everybody needs to fall within this binary. You spend your whole life and everybody's telling you, hey, you're a girl. And as you're developing your sense of self, if everybody around you is telling you that you're this thing, you're gonna believe it. Because how are you supposed to understand that what you're feeling isn't what everybody's telling you? Right? And so it isn't until I got to college that I really started to deconstruct this for myself. And it's not because something in me suddenly changed, right? I was always a little too allied to the trans community, like a little too invested in LGBTQ rights. And a lot of us come to our queerness in this way because we've been conditioned since birth to believe that we're something we're not. And so when we feel like this truth within ourselves, it's so easy to deny it because everybody else does that for us. And so when I came into my gender identity, if I like to call it like the first leg of my spiritual awakening, but I can also call it an emotional breakdown. Right, the two feel very synonymous to me. And the reason being that I suddenly just had this like blank canvas that I kept trying to fill. Because everybody kept telling me I needed to fill it with something. And so the way I like to, so I kept doing this dance, right? That it's kind of like trying on different hats. And you have this list of like gender identities and you're like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what hat fits best. And at some point, I just got really tired of trying on hats. And I was like, why is this something that I need to do? Where does the compulsion to fill this void come from? And I had to really sit with that and realize that it wasn't a compulsion within myself, right? I am who I am as a person. And I think that me just living within my human experience can be considered enough. That I can just be. But something about giving myself access to that freedom was something that nobody ever told me I could do. And so throughout the years, I have had to unlearn feeling like doing that is wrong. And so when I was really sitting down with the fact that I was going to have this job position, I had already been identifying as non-binary for a really long time. But what I wasn't doing was like fully stepping into the truth of who I am, and like still really allowing people to misgender me all the time. But then came the responsibility of I'm supposed to be helping youth guide themselves towards their own truth. How am I supposed to do that if I'm not doing that for myself? And that was a really scary moment for me, because I realized that suddenly I needed to challenge so many people around me in their perception of who I was as a person. Right? Everybody had to relearn my pronouns. Everybody had to relearn not looking at me as a woman. And so many people are still stumbling through it. And I think so many people are still gonna continue to stumble through it for a long time. And so to be trans is to continuously have to reclaim our truth, even when people are so adamant to deny it. And because of that, it felt like something really sacred. Like you're like always asking people to see you for who you are. And it's frustrating, right? It's so frustrating. But it also means that I have a very clear understanding of who I am as a person, because I can always step into the challenge of asserting myself. I have gone through the gender factory and come out in one piece. And so all trans people exist in multitudes. No two of us are the same. Even two people who have the same gender identity, who use the same pronouns, aren't the same. Two cisgender men aren't the same. And so why do we expect everybody else who is trans, who sits within the non-binary community, to fit that mold? As if there's only one right way to be trans. Right? So as trans people, we always have to carve out a space for ourselves within a society that is determined to convince us that our existence is wrong, that we can't be the norm, that we're just intrusive outliers. But the reality is that we're so in tune with ourselves at a level that a lot of people aren't. And so I want to leave all of you with the invitation to play with gender. What I mean by that is to question yourself, your surroundings, the things that you have internalized as the truth. Why do you believe yourself to be the person that you are? Is it because someone told you? Or is it because you believe it at your core? No matter your gender, what makes you feel connected to it? What experiences can you point to that feel like the truth? And I think this is an experience that everybody should go through, because one of two things will happen. One, you'll either sit with this and recognize that, yeah, I am who I believe myself to be, and you will become more assured about your identity as a person. Or two, asking yourself that question will slowly unravel a lot more questions. And that is also a gift, because it is the act of rebirthing yourself. And I think that's really powerful. So, thank you so much for having me today. Yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Adam.
Thank you very much, Erica. That was awesome. I'm so glad that you were able to make it, and so glad that you were able to share with us, because it was beautiful. Thank you very much. All right. Our closing hymn is "We Shall Overcome." We shall overcome. Please rise in spirit and join us.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday.
For our benediction today, please reach out to others in your thoughts. Feel the connection between us, the interconnected web joining us as a community. Our benediction today is a body blessing by Reverend Lisa Bovey Kemper. As I read the blessing, I want you to touch the part of the blessing that we are blessing as I read the part. So I want you to start by taking your hands and place them on your forehead. May you be blessed with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. May your intellect take you far on your journey. You have been blessed with reason and free will. It is your call every day to use these gifts. Now place your hands on your throat. May you be blessed with voice. May you learn the complex nature of truth-telling. The ability to speak the truth in love is something that requires honesty, empathy, and care. You are challenged every day to seek the joy that comes with sharing your truth compassionately, as well as listening to others. Now place your hands on your heart. May your heart be full and blessed with love. May you know the agony of heartbreak as it is intertwined with the elation of true love. Your heart is a strong and resilient organ, one that will be with you until the end of your time on earth. May you heed the wisdom of your heart and always trust the truth it tells. And now touch your abdomen. You are blessed with the gift of sexuality. May you always remember that you are a beloved child of God. Your body is sacred and belongs to you alone. May you live into the full expression of your identity as a human being, embracing your true sexual and gender identity. The gift of sexuality brings with it many rewards, as well as great responsibility. May you always retain power over your own being, striving towards mutually fulfilling and just relationship. And now just look at your hands, put your hands in front of your face, so bless your hands. When you were a baby, your tiny hands were your first contact with the world. Before you could see more than a few feet in front of your face, you grasped the finger of your loved ones. You catch yourself with your hands when you fall, and you express love and comfort to others with them too. May your hands be gentle and strong. May you use them to carry light into the darkness and rest to the weary. May your hands always find the place of greatest need, beginning with your own. And may the creator of all things hold you in the palm of her hand wherever you go. And now wrap your arms around your whole body. Give yourself a hug. May you be blessed on your journey. May you remember that growth happens on the journey and that you are never alone. May you always remember that you are a whole person, that each of these parts work together. We offer our blessings upon you, body, mind, and spirit. May you be guided by compassion and truth, justice, and love. May you find rest on the journey, always remembering where you came from, being mindful that your ancestors stand behind you, whether we are present on earth or have gone back to the soul of the world. May you be blessed in all things and carry blessings with you wherever you go. Amen, Ashe, Salom, blessed be, and Satu. There is the contact information from the announcements earlier today. If there's anything you need to write down, any website or phone number or email address, or the physical address of the church if you'd like to mail a donation, all up there right now. And let's see here, I'm gonna let you all unmute yourselves. And Erica agreed to stay for a short Q&A, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them.
There we are. Grace.
No. Okay. Erica, I just wanted to thank you. That was a very powerful service. And what struck me about it was, my friend told me this week, she goes, you should take comfort in the fact that we are probably more similar to each other than we are different. And, you know, I think that what you said applies to anything. It applies more to just sexuality or race. You know, it's all about humanity and what we go through as humans. And I think every movement where, you know, the person who is defined as the other has to go through this journey, I think it's a universal path where, you know, conversation is started and we start talking about it and it dissipates some of the fear of the other. So thank you for your thoughts.
Erica, you are muted.
Yeah, thank you so much for that feedback. I'm really glad you enjoyed it.
Nika's got her hand up. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, Erica, I really wanted to thank you. And I piggyback what Grace said about how applicable this is to all portions of your identity, not just in terms of gender identity. And I'm a person who thinks in metaphors all the time. That's how if I want to understand something, a metaphor usually helps me to get there faster and deeper. And when you use the metaphor about changing your hats, for me, my metaphor, when you said that, it was like, oh yeah, but then for me, I realized that for me, my metaphor would be shoes, because hats cannot necessarily, for me anyway, I have not discovered in my lifetime that hats can be confining or, you know, hurtful or pinch or stop you from doing things. You know, decide you're not going to go do this activity because your feet will hurt because of the shoes that you're wearing. And so that's what came for me, was the pair of shoes. And it's always refining it. It might be like, okay, I'm the kind of a person that feels more comfortable in tennis shoes than in high heels. But that doesn't mean that every tennis shoe is going to fit me. I have to find number one, the size that fits me, but then I also have to find which brand is, you know, allows my foot to expand or to give me the support on my arches, or, you know, so you still have to refine and refine and refine until you get to the shoe that fits you, your uniqueness, your body, that fits along with your body and is comfortable for you and provides you the support and comfort to live your life the way you want to live it and to do the things you want to do. So I just wanted to share to you that for me, it would be my shoes and not my hat.
Yeah, that's understandable, which is funny because I actually don't really like wearing shoes. The same way I don't like wearing genders. But yeah, thank you so much. I see Lee has a hand up.
Hello.
And Tom,
And Tom.
Thank you, Erica. Quick question. What is the boundary? Thanks. What is the boundary between asking questions to learn and asking questions that are exploitative?
Ooh, I think that's a hard question. I think it all really depends on the framework, right? And I think leaving an opening for like asking a question in a way that leaves an opening for people not to answer it.
Yes.
Is where I would put the line at. Right, and I think it, like anything that deals with like the body itself is a no-no. Right, like anything around surgeries or just how things operate on the body. But that in terms of experience and like just questioning like about how do people experience their gender are all valid questions, so long as there isn't an obligation for the person to do that labor if they don't want to. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's where I'm leaving it.
Thank you.
I also see Tom has a hand up.
And then me.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, well, the first thing that came up with all these transgender gay people that have been killed, I got to reflecting on that, and it's like most of us experienced bullying when we were growing up. And it's like, it seems to be part of human nature to bully people that are in a weaker position than we are. And it's like, does that reinforce your own feelings of well-being to say, well, I'm not one of these people, and so I can harass them. I remember Johnny Carson used to make fun of gay people, and funny at the time. And, but most of us, particularly me, are a mix of strengths and weaknesses. And terrible coordination. I flunked typing when I was in high school, and I never figured out how to play basketball. I take PE, that was kind of the Lord of the Flies, PE. But, and they just give me a ball to go off and try and shoot baskets by myself. So maybe in that sense, I do have some compensating strengths. I'm very spatial visual. And so that I thrived in aerospace engineering as long as the Russians were in the market for missiles and so on. So I was very lucky to be able to exploit the strengths I have had. And so things have turned out well. Now I'm in a sense where I'm 84 years old and I've lost my short-term memory. So I feel very vulnerable in trying to relate to things like this. Which, so anyway, that's it. We're all a mix of strengths and weaknesses. And you can say, well, being transgender, they argue with me and say, well, is that really a weakness? Well, I'm sure it's caused you a lot of pain and so on and so on. In that sense, if weakness, disadvantages causes you pain, it's a weakness. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to like just exist more in complexities, right? In all aspects of our lives, not just gender. And I think like just trying to box things puts all of us into a disadvantage. In all aspects of our lives, right? We all have positive, negative experiences. All right, so John, I see your name is on the list.
Yeah, Bonnie's before me though.
Oh yeah, right, Bonnie, okay.
Yeah, Bonnie than me.
Your talk was very, very interesting, and it brought something to mind. I remember being in a car with two other people coming back from a meeting, and we got talking, and all three of us in our life had thought of ourselves and particularly used the term, we all thought of ourselves as male identified. Now, one of us is trans, one of us is in a lesbian relationship, and I am very comfortably cisgender. and yet we all use that term as we thought of ourselves. And it meant obviously very different things to each of us. And we had a really very interesting conversation about what that term meant to each of us in our very different ways in our lives. And I, like so many things in our existence, it is on a continuum.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because like I have met, like, right, so for myself, and my primary gender identifier being agender, I've met other agender people who, like, our experiences are nowhere near the same. And all it is like giving language to something. And the way we use that language can shift from day to day. And so, yeah, thank you for that, Bonnie. That's interesting. All right, so now I will pass it over to John.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. This took me back to a time in Riverside in 2002. There was a transgender named Jeffrey Owens who was assaulted and beat up outside the Menagerie Bar in Riverside. And he was taken to Merino Valley Hospital where he died of an antibiotic overdose. But the 4 individuals that beat the heck out of this transgender, we tried to get the city to prosecute it as a hate crime, and they refused to do so. They just wouldn't do it. So I tried to find research to find out what those 4 individuals were accused of, but I couldn't ever find the end of it. But our church really got involved in transgender, and this is, I think, what really started us on the road to being more open to transgenders, gays, and lesbians. My daughter was in junior high at the time, and she had a few gay lesbian friends, and there was a movement to try to get the what's now the Bobby Bonds Sports Complex in Riverside. They tried to get it named the Jeffrey Owens Center, and the city refused to do that. No matter what they did, they just weren't going to allow it. And I also remember a time when our church had a number of gay lesbian members, and we had quite a few people that said, you know what, I'm leaving the church. I don't want to be known that I go to a gay lesbian church, which is really a sad thing. But I do appreciate I can't even imagine the road you've had to travel. I mean, I can't even put myself in your shoes. So again, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you for that, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? I'm like 20, how long ago was that? Almost 20 years ago. And there's still certain aspects of like local government that haven't really shifted all that much in terms of like how they view trans people. And I feel like we still got a long way to go, but we're slowly getting there. And I have faith that we will get there eventually. But it is a long road. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else?
Grace.
Yeah, go ahead, Grace.
I think we could wrap it all up by saying it's all complicated.
Yeah, complicated.
Yeah, it is just after 11:30. We do have chat time at 11:30. We're going to close this out so that we can our chat time. But thank you so much, Erica. Like, I am really grateful that you came and shared with us your story and taught us. And you know, I always learn when I get to hear you speak. I was happy. Thank you so much. See you later.
All right.
See you all chat time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.